Mouse Rebel News fans, many people don't know this, some do. There's a new trade agreement that's being drafted by US President Barack Obama right now that's going to change a great deal of the way that international trade is being carried out. Now, this is all being done in secret. They're working on the draft copy right now that's going to be eventually put to Congress, but nobody has seen it yet. In fact, not even Congress. Multiple members of Congress have asked to see this trade agreement so they can look at it and so we can have open public debate about it. But they're being denied. The public is not being allowed to see this new agreement, and neither is Congress. It's expected this could be finished, around October, at which point it's probably going to be presented to them for one day and then voted on the next, and then they're going to shove it through Congress very, very quickly and quietly, the same way they've done with the continuations of the Patriot Act. Now, here are some of the things that are going to happen. It's going to put huge barriers on the internet and severely restrict freedom of speech in that respect. You remember SOPA? Well, SOPA is going to be coming back under this. It's going to get rid of a absolute ton of the Buy America provisions where things have to be purchased domestically. Now, one of the other things that it's going to do is it's basically going to force even more manufacturing overseas. By force, I mean the actual market mechanism will send even more manufacturing jobs overseas, severely impoverishing even further the working and now middle class of the US alone. Now, in addition to this, as if all of this isn't even bad enough, it's going to end a lot of the restrictions on risky trading and derivative creation. Meaning a lot of what we suffered because of the 2008 global collapse of capitalism, because of the unrestricted, unfettered capitalism, is now going to be coming back. What few little restrictions that were actually placed on us are going to be coming back as a result of this. This treaty is going to be known as the TransPacific Partnership, and it's going to include a bunch of countries. It's going to have the United States, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Peru, Brunei, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia. What a lot of people are calling this, and correctly so, is they're calling it the Pacific NAFTA. It's essentially going to be the same thing, but it's going to cover areas of the world that haven't been covered yet. Now, this is going to be absolutely devastating for the working and middle class of the United States and other first world countries as well. Here's an example of what free trade has already done to us. Recent free trade agreement with South Korea, a 10% decline of U.S. exports to Korea. The U.S. trade deficit with Korea climbed 37%. U.S. auto industry has been crippled. A loss of U.S. control where international trade, banking, and finance is concerned. A projected 159,000 jobs will be lost. When NAFTA was pushed through in Congress in 1993, the United States actually had a trade surplus with Mexico of $1.6 billion. By 2010, we had a trade deficit with Mexico of $61.6 billion. Back in 1985, our trade deficit with China was approximately $6 million for the entire year. In 2012, our trade deficit with China was $315 billion. This was the largest trade deficit that one nation has had with another nation in the history of the world. Here's some general damage done by free trade. The United States has lost more than 56,000 manufacturing facilities since 2001. Back in the year 2000, there were more than 17 million Americans working in manufacturing. Now there are less than 12 million. There are less Americans working in manufacturing today than there was in 1950, even though the population of the country has more than doubled since then. According to the Economic Policy Institute, America is losing 500,000 jobs to China every single year. According to Professor Alan Linder of Princeton University, 40 million more U.S. jobs could be sent offshore over the next 2 decades if current trends continue. Today, corporate profits as a percentage of U.S. GDP are at an all-time high, but wages as a percentage of GDP are at a near all-time low. Without enough good jobs, more Americans are becoming dependent on the government. If you can believe it, the number of Americans on food stamps has gone from about 17 million in the year 2000 to more than 47 million today. Overall, the United States has run a trade deficit of more than $8 trillion with the rest of the world since 1975. What we are facing here is capitalism. This is imperialism. This is economic neoliberalism. This is sending jobs overseas because it makes the cost of manufacture cheaper. Then they can bring those products here, sell them at a lower price, have a much higher rate of profit, And it's actually greater because not just because it costs less to produce, but because more people can now buy them. And obviously you have planned obsolescence in the meantime that makes them wear out, then you have to buy them again. In other words, increasing the rate of consumption to keep profits up. I mean, this is just a brief economic piece to this whole situation. But what we're seeing here is the drive of capitalism towards greater and greater profits. Lenin perfectly told us that imperialism had to reach every single corner of the earth. It had to go everywhere, no matter what. Markets had to increase in size. Consumption had to increase. And that would drive the imperialist countries towards further tensions with other countries. In this case, it's not a war like it is with the Middle East. It's not proxy wars as it is with Africa. This is an outright trade agreement that puppet governments are signing and agreeing to accelerate this further. What we are seeing is an increase in the capitalist imperialist system right before our very eyes. And this is going to devastate not just us, it's going to devastate the people in those countries as well. This is capitalism's mad drive towards profit. I believe this may be what it is they're trying to do to keep capitalism alive after the huge devastation of the 2008 collapse. Imperialism doesn't have much further it can go. It's got this, then it's got Africa, and then it's done. Capitalism is built on a premise of infinite growth, which is not possible. And that may be the very death spell of capitalism itself when it reaches those theoretical, actual physical limits. And what we are seeing right now is capitalism trying to transcend those limits and go as far towards the wall as possible in order to keep up profits. Now, as usual in these situations, people are very quick to blame Barack Obama for this, and that this is all his fault. He's selling out the American public. He's the terrible, evil, bad guy in this situation. But we have to understand this system as it is. It is not reducible to Barack Obama. It's not him doing this. He's just the bureaucrat who's signing on the bottom line. This is the brainchild of all the 12 countries involved. They're all signing on to this too. This is something the ruling class needs to have happen. This is not the work of one man. Replace Obama with John McCain, and we'd have exactly the same thing, if not very likely something that's even worse. There's no point in here pointing fingers at Barack Obama and saying that he's at fault here. This is him selling the people out. This is the system doing what the system was always going to do. This is not some kind of strange, aberrant behavior within capitalism. This is capitalism itself. We need to recognize this before it's too late. This is not the Democrats doing it. This is not Barack Obama doing this. This is capitalism. This is imperialism. This is what we are supposed to be resisting. This is not the work of one man. We have to acknowledge that the very system itself, capitalism, is guilty for this situation and is guilty for what's coming, an even greater destruction of our lives, a greater destruction of the environment, and a greater destruction of the lives of millions of people around the world as well.